What's up guys, Kyle Chris here bringing you guys another Dragon Ball video, and I'm very excited to bring you guys my 5th place Xeno Syn deck from the webcam national side event that took place yesterday on Sunday. So this was actually going to be, I'm sure maybe you guys didn't know, but I did have an invitation to the Nats. I was going to go, and unfortunately the day of, which was Friday, flying out, my plane was canceled. My flight was canceled, I should say, and I was unable to get another flight in time to make it for check-in, and I probably wouldn't have been able to make it until the next day, and I wouldn't have been able to make it in time. So that was a little unfortunate, and it kind of sucks. I will release my deck profile for what that deck was going to be probably later this week, but I figured this one was a little more important to get out. So we ended up getting 5th place. We went X1. The one loss, it's going to have an asterisk next to it. We'll explain when we get to the matchup portion of stuff. But this deck is extremely fun. I love milling people out, man. This deck, every game that I won, you win through milling. This deck is not designed. It can be designed to win through, taking their life down to 0. But a lot of times we're winning based off of the mills. And that's kind of what you should focus on first if you're going to be playing this deck, is focusing on milling your opponent out first rather than trying to just take their life down to 0, because it doesn't always work that way with this deck. So this leader has 2 autos. First auto, actually we'll start at the top. This leader has blocker on both sides. First leader that ever have blocker. I know the new Super Saiyan God Trunks leader that got revealed has blocker as well on the Awakened side. This one has it on both. First auto, which is going to be consistent for both sides, is anytime you activate a Shadow Dragon extra card, I'm going to call them spells. So anytime you activate a spell, your opponent mills a card. On this side, you and your opponent both mill, and on this side, your opponent mills. You do not have to mill anymore. Auto, when you attack, you may choose 1 Shadow Dragon card in your hand, pitch it, and then draw a card. Kind of sucks, but there are some ways to actually make this a plus 1, and we'll go over that. Awaken, you awaken at 4 life or less, or if you have 7 Shadow Dragon cards in your drop area. It's very specific on cards because all of your extra cards, all of your spells also count as Shadow Dragon cards. You restand 1, draw 1. This side, when you attack, you don't have to pitch anymore. You just draw a card. You gain 5k. So you're 20k on the front side. I mean, on this side, which is absolutely nuts. Also, didn't mention that when this card attacks, you get the restand. So it makes your blocker relevant. Same thing with this. Whenever you swing, at the end of the turn, you restand. Activate Main of Battle once per turn for this card. Spirit Boost. You Spirit Boost, then you can activate any of your spells from your hand for free. This is where the deck becomes nasty and a little broken, because all of the spells in the deck also have Activate Main in Battle, so they can be activated during your opponent's battle phase, which is generally when I mill my opponent out. We'll go into that with the actual matchups, but I milled out out of the 6 games that I won. I milled out probably 3 or 4 of my opponents during their attack phase. And because it's uninteractive, because it's just spells, it is a little toxic, but there's plenty of chances to kill this deck before that happens. You just have to be able to play around stuff, because this deck has so much defense. We played 55 cards. Obviously, it was a best of 1, and this was very unique because it was only UW cards. So you can play cards like Power Burst, Super Kamehameha, things like that, which also helped me too, because I didn't have to worry about a lot of counterplays, which going back into the normal format, there's changes you can make, but the deck's still really, really good. So obviously the most important card in the deck is going to be the Unison. We run 4 the Toa. I'm not big on playing the Bardock. I may side deck Bardock depending on the format, but this is by far the best card in the deck. It's your Unison. You play it out for at least 1 energy. Can be as many as you want, because it has an X cost and no specific cost. Auto, whenever your leader activates blocker, this card gains a marker, and you mill the top card of your deck. So generally, you want to play this card on turn 1. You want a +1, and then your opponent's going to just go, okay, I'm going to swing at the Unison. You just block, okay, add a marker, and then you mill the top card of your deck, and then you get to take the life, right? +1 is you draw a card, bottom deck a card from your hand, then you choose up to 3 spells in your drop, and then you put them in the deck in any order, on the bottom of the deck in any order. This is good once you've awoken, because you need 7 cards in the drop. You're not going to do that often, but You want to be able to do this so you can refill your deck with spells. Also, so it helps you not mill out because you go through a lot of cards in your deck. -7 is the same thing as the Yellow Syn leader, which is we play out seven dragons with different names. This time with this card, we play them from our drop or our hand, which is great. A lot of the battle cards in this deck have effects when they're played from the hand. So it's better if you play them from your hand, but you can play them from the drop area too. So a lot of them don't have effects off of that. But you know, it's still good. I never got a chance to use that because I use a lot of spells, so I'm always down ticking her constantly. But for decks that leave her alone, and generally if you have multiple of these, just stack them underneath her and just +1. It's going to be better for you in the long run. If you can get up to a point where you can -7, it is pretty destructive. I've done it in testing, and it's game ending essentially. So Unison. So we have the 1-drops here. Since we couldn't play Power Burst, we had to play a little more 1-drops. But I would play these guys anyways. So 2 of the Wicked Strike Syn, 2 of the Natron, and 3 of the Haze. All are 1-drops. And from this point on, I'm not going to talk about this guy yet. But from this point on, excluding this card here, every battle card has an auto that says when it's played or discarded by a Shadow Dragon effect, you may look at the top card of your deck. If it is a Shadow Dragon card, you can reveal it, add it to your hand. If it's not, you don't have to reveal it, you just bottom deck the card. Also, you don't have to draw the cards too. Sometimes you want to put them in the bottom of your deck, but obviously you're going to want to draw, right? So he's the only one who doesn't have that effect. He's only from discarding, so that's why I didn't include him. But this also is triggered off of your leader effect. So if you swing and you pitch one of these guys, you draw a card off your leader effect, and you draw a card off of these effects by being able to be pitched. So just kind of a cool thing. So these guys here, I'm saying that because I'm not going to go over that auto for the rest of the video. So just know that all of those cards, except for this guy, have that effect. This guy has the same activate main as my leader side. Activate main or battle spirit boost. I can play out an extra card for free. So this is just a way for me to be able to get basically a spellcaster on board to allow me to interact with my Unison a little bit earlier. So maybe if I'm not awoken yet, I can still activate it. Also, just is a 1-drop, which is important. 3 of the Haze. This guy, you can tap him for 1 black to play out a 3 or less black dragon from your hand. And because it's choose up to 1, your opponent has to combo or they have to counter in the blind window before you play something, which is important because you have cards that have barrier, you have cards that have deflect. So if you're playing against blue and you do that, if they God Sealing, you just play the card that has deflect, hopefully in your hand. If they have charismatic villain, then you play the guy that has barrier, and then you just kind of get around a little bit of their counter plays. This guy here, when you play him, you get to grab any spell back from the drop. This card actually won me probably 2 or 3 of my matchups. I'm going to actually bump him up to 3, I think. And this guy may be getting taken out of the deck, at least for now, maybe in the side deck. Bumping him up to 4, bumping him up to 3. This card's absolutely broken. Just being able to just use this to just snatch spells back is just ungodly. And how powerful it can be in this deck, because sometimes you only need like 1 more spell to be able to mill your opponent out, and all of them have limit 1, so you can only activate them once per turn. You can play this guy and then grab one of the spells back from your drop area, and then you're ready for either the next turn or for that turn where you can mill your opponent out, which is generally what we're trying to do. All right, so we have the 3-drops. So we have 3 of the Haze, 2 of the Natron, 2 Ice, 1 Nova, 1 Rage. So these are the main targets for the 1-drop for this guy here. These are the main targets for this guy here. Excluding this one, I mean, you can play it off of it, but it's mainly these guys here. I just put him here because he's another 3-drop. So we have 3-drop Haze, blocker, crit, 15k. When he swings, you get to warp a battle card off your opponent's board and then restand him at the end of the turn. That's really good. So basically, he's a 15k thwarting, basically, for the deck. That's only a 15k. So instead of having double strike, he has crit, right? So you swing with this guy, you warp any battle card they have on board. You're swinging at leader for crit. This is probably the one card we're going to swing at leader a lot when we have it on board. I may bump this up to 4. I think it's still really good. I was kind of playing... I play against a lot of fast decks, so I really didn't want to spend the energy to play him out. So a lot of the time I wasn't playing him out. I actually cast him for 3 in one of my games. It was really funny. Natron is a deflect blocker, so this is your anti-blue guy. You play him, you get to absorb a battle card 5 or less from the drop area or on board, and then choose one keyword skill, up to one keyword skill from that card, and gain that until the end of your opponent's next turn. So if your opponent has a card that has dual attack, give this guy dual attack, becomes 20k, blocker dual attack. You can give him barrier. If you absorb a card from the drop area that has indestructible, it's pretty nasty. Then you can use this to then gain indestructible. If your opponent counterplays, if they decide the charismatic villain, right? So the counterplay comes down. This card will come in. My auto will trigger first. So then, let's say they have a barrier card or maybe an indestructible card. You can absorb that card, and then they have to. And then if they target this, it doesn't go off, obviously. 2 of the 3-drop ice. This is also a barrier blocker card. At the end of the turn, you just restand him. So he's pretty powerful here. I was gonna run more, but I only have 1 foil, and I tried to. Most of the deck is foil outside of a few of the newer cards. So I try to keep it all foil. It's kind of a stupid excuse, but this card's pretty cool. I never played it because I always had better targets like these guys in my hand for stuff, but I do think he is pretty cool. Now for these guys, this guy will always be in my deck, even once I get all the newer cards, because actually in this deck, surprise, surprise, I don't have some of the newer stuff. This card is really, really good. So he's a 16k for 1, so he gets over Black Mass Saiyan, which is nuts. Whenever this card is played, you get to play out your Toa Unison from the drop with a marker on it. This is really powerful. So if you ever down tick 7 and you play him out from your drop area or from your hand, your Toa will then go to the drop. You can play this guy out, search the top card obviously from off the auto to draw, and then you can play your Toa back out. Also, just being able to have this guy in my possession, so if my opponent does remove my Unison, I don't have the option to one, I can always play this to get it back. And then this guy is he's a 3-cost blocker. He also has a counter attack effect, which allows him to negate an attack. If you have 7 or more dragon cards in the drop, he becomes a 1-cost, and he comes into play in rest mode, so that's a little unfortunate. You don't get the block with him, but he has a 1-cost battle card that is negate. Very good with decks that like to run like Absolute Annihilation, which that card does put a damper on this deck quite a bit. This allows you to block some attacks. To negate some attacks that I have to use your extra cards, and because it only costs 1 energy, it's still it's pretty viable. And then the last 3-drop, I didn't include it in this because you're not going to ever really play him off of the haze effect. This is going to be Power of Darkness. This is probably the best 3-drop in the deck. So you actually can play him out for 1 if you have if you activate a Spirit Boost effect. So you can use your leader effect, activate main, activate an extra card, and then after you're done executing that extra card, then you auto play this card out. I think you have to do it first, but then you can resolve it. However, no one really plays this deck, so trying to figure out that ruling. He's a 20k double strike, comes out for 1. Obviously, he allows you to search top card and draw a card, but he also mills your opponent out a card. So when he's played off of the auto limit 1 effect, which is 1 black, you play him out off of a Spirit Boost effect, your opponent mills the top card of their deck. So he also allows your opponent to mill. So if you're activating a Spirit Boost effect, you activate an extra card, you make your opponent mill, you play this guy, they mill too. Then you have a body on board that maybe you're drawing off of that card effect, or using an effect off of that. You're drawing off of this. Now you have a 20k double strike that you can swing at your leader. You can play this on either turn. Just limit 1 off of the auto. Another new addition is the Omega 8-drop unique 30k. Play them out for 1 black on top of any, in replacement of any Syn that is 5 or less. So if you just look at all of these cards here, if you have any of these cards on board, doesn't matter if it's a 1-drop or a 3-drop, as long as it's 5 or less, you can swap that card, put it in the drop, play this guy out. And then when you play him, you warp one of your opponent's battle cards. Thankfully, he has unique, so a lot of you are safe, because if I can just spam out 30k bodies, this is a better version of Dark Broly, but they nerfed him so he can only have unique, so he can only play 1 out at a time. But he is really good, also because his warp effect does not have an energy requirement for the warp effect. You can warp tokens, so if they use homicidal clones, you can just play this, warp the token, and then you can swing. And 30k, most people are just going to take that, so this is definite damage or definite board clear, which is also good too. For the Oceanus Negates, it's just smarter to run this over Vegeta. Vegeta sucks in this deck. You can't draw it. This card, every game I saw all 4 of my super combos, I would play one of these guys and just look and go, okay, cool. Look, I get to search out a super combo. It's pretty nuts. Sparking 5, it's a 10k 1 draw 1. It also has a Spirit Boost effect, limit 1. If you activate a Spirit Boost effect, you can put this card underneath your underneath your Unison to then draw the card and uptick it, so then it doesn't lose a marker off Spirit Boost. Because we Spirit Boost a lot. Sometimes the super combos are actually better for that. Don't be afraid to use a super combo for that, because we're not going to get to the combo stage a lot in this deck, and if we do, we're going to survive most of the time. So this card's not always good for super combo. It's just good to keep the Unison alive. Probably the best card that was in the tournament by far. I saw a lot of decks playing this, but Oceanus. I ordered my fourth one because I was waiting for it to go down in price. I got it for like $10. But this card is why the deck is so difficult to kill. One of the big reasons why the deck is so difficult to kill. It's a 2-cost counter attack. You negate. You pitch a card, negate the attack. If the card is played, your opponent has to mill 4 for every time they want to attack. The card also has blocker. So essentially, if this card comes down and it sticks, your opponent has to mill 8 cards then to deal damage to you. Because then they're going to swing at you. You're going to block with this. They're going to mill 4, and then then they can swing at you again. And they can mill 4. Two people try to swing through this. I don't know why, but you know, it is what it is. The second effect, because people who don't play this deck, they probably don't know this. The second effect, it has the draw effect. So you search the top card of your deck. If it's an Oceanus, I mean, if it is a if it's an Oceanus, but if it is a black Syn card, add it to your hand. Second effect, you can pitch a card off of this effect, right? So the idea is that you want to pitch any of these battle cards, because when you pitch the battle card, because this is a Shadow Dragon effect, you also get the draw off that card. So you're not losing any cards from hand. You're playing this guy, you're pitching a card, you're drawing off of her, and you're drawing off the battle card that you pitched. Absolutely nuts. And like to being a blocker, you also can sacrifice this for the Omega. At some point, let's say you just don't have a battle card to play, you can just sack this off, play this, and then because it's a 5 or less, it still works with it. Definitely going to be adding a 4th one to the deck, though. Another card we're going to add another one of is the 4-drop Negative Energy Explosion, aka Blue is What card. This card absolutely demolishes blue decks. So we'll read you all the keyword skills that he has. He has Deflect, Double Strike, Barrier, and Blocker. Yep, Deflect, Double Strike, Barrier, and Blocker. So God Sealing, there's no card in the game that hits this card when it comes down. Nothing. Not a single card, which is great. Comes down for 4 energy. Obviously, it has a draw effect. Activate main in battle. Spirit Boost 1. Restand this card. Your opponent mills the top card of their deck. And then you get to activate an extra card for free. So, not only does this allow you to activate extra cards for free, but this activates extra cards for free. And also it restands. And it has blocker. And it has double strike. And all the defensive stuff. So this is my blue Unison killer. They have Boo on board. I'm going to swing this at Boo. Restand, since I can't bottom deck it because it has barrier, and then swing again. That's probably going to take away a Boo. Most of the time they're not going to use cards from their hand. Sometimes they will, maybe at the beginning, then they realize that it's just not worth it. Also being able to double block, being able to block an attack and then restand him to keep him alive. Also milling a card off of this, activating an extra card, milling a card off of this. It gets really nasty. Once we get to the extra cards, I'll show you kind of the strategy with milling. So I'm going to keep this guy right here. We'll keep the pre-release here. But I think the most I milled out today in one attack phase was like 9 cards. I milled out my opponent from 9 to 0 in their attack phase. I know it was 8. Sorry, 8 to 0 in their attack phase, and it's just uninteractable stuff that they can't actually do. So. They can't actually mess with it, so it's a little annoying. So the spells that we have here, we have 4 of the Energy Explosion and 2 Whirlwind. These are your draw. I mean, 3 Whirlwind. These are your draw cards. This draws any battle card in your deck. This draws any extra card. So this searches top 7. This searches top 5. Second effect on this, you can pitch a Shadow Dragon card to give your leader 1k for the turn. It's kind of like a Sensu Bean. Comboing over 16k is the same thing as comboing over 20. So if you're playing against a board that has a ton of 15k bodies, you can just basically this works like a Sensu Bean. You draw a card, they mill, and then you can pitch a card to gain 1k. If you pitch a battle card, you can search off the top card of the deck since it's being pitched by Shadow Dragon skill. Draw a card so you're not losing a card. This guy searches top 7 for an extra card. I mean, any extra card. Or if you don't have a Unison in play, you can actually play your Unison out. So a lot of the time, I'm going to mulligan for this card if I don't see my Unison. And then I can tap 1 to play this, to then search top 7 to then play a Unison out. +1 on the Unison, and now my Unison's good to go, right? I'm going to probably up Whirlwind back up to 4. Or actually may end up cutting down. Probably what I may end up keeping it at 3. I'm going to test it more, but this is going to stay at 4 for the foreseeable future just because it acts like another Unison. The warping packages, I have Ultimate Dragon Slaying Bullet and 2 of the Ultimate Dragon Quake. This is getting bumped up to 3 for sure again. This card has a counterplay effect. When your opponent's playing a Unison, they may choose 2 of the following effects. They may either take a marker off for every 2, right? 1 marker? Yep, so they take a marker off for every 2 cards in their drop and warp, or they put the Unison in the drop area. If they don't do either of those, they can only attack once for the turn. Very nasty. They're playing a really strong Unison. Maybe they're playing their secret rare Unison. Maybe it's red, and maybe it's just a dual attack Unison. You play this, they either have to. At that point, they're going to have enough to where the card's probably going to have to go in the drop area, right? So you take a marker off for every 2 cards in the drop and warp, or just put the whole thing in the drop. If they don't, they only get 1 attack for the turn. Second effect on this, activate main or battle. Your opponent chooses one of their battle cards with an energy cost less than the cards in their drop area, and then they send it to the warp. It's okay. They have to choose the card. If they only have 1 card on board, it's really, really good. But if they have multiple cards, they can just choose a small guy. But the counterattack, the counterplay, the portion is the more important part of this card. Now this card here is absolutely nuts. This card, you warp a battle card with a higher energy cost than their current energy, and at the end of the turn it comes back with the skills negated. So it's kind of like a Kai. The second part of this is if your opponent has less than 15 cards in deck, it goes to the drop instead of being played. Absolutely nuts. You just think of a boss monster, right? Think of any of the new secret rares that you can combo in and play for 2, right? They play that card, like, oh, cool, I have this guy on board, and you just go, okay, warp it. All right, fighting against fates, all right, warp it. I don't know. 8-drop Kid Goku, the Dragon Fist Goku. They swing with it. Oh, I can't combo with my battle cards. What shall I do? I'm just going to pay 0 energy to warp the card. It's really funny whenever your opponent tries to combo a bunch and then you just play this and warp it and they go, okay, I guess that's fine. It's a little toxic, but this card just puts you in such a safe position against decks that like to play out big battle cards. Smaller decks, not so good because it can't warp stuff, but that's what this is for, more so for the smaller decks. But we're going to bump Quake back up to 3. I took it out to 2 for stuff, but it's definitely going to go back in. This guy here, I don't know how to feel about it. So, has 2 effects. Counterattack, you can choose one of your opponent's battle cards, 15k or less, ignoring barrier and send it to the warp. That's very good. Secondary effect, you can give your leader or a battle card 15k until the end of turn or battle, depending on which one ends first. This card's really, really good. There was times, though, that I don't think I needed 3, because there was times I drew into it. I'm like, okay, I only have 1 of these cards in my hand. The other ones are dead since it's limit 1, so I can't really use it. I'm going to end up cutting this down to 2. I think it's fine at 2. I think maybe if I run a 3rd one in the side deck, maybe later on, but 2 in the main deck is probably the best option right now, just since this card, like it's good, but in some matchups, like not being able to warp stuff because they don't have 15k or less, it just seems really bad. But in those senses where it's good, you can because you can use the counterattack as many times as you want, as long as you have a Unison in play, you can just play it out for free. So then they're milling a card anyways. So as long as you can keep warping stuff, it's good. So I was kind of 50-50 on it. The last spell cards are the 2-drops. So I say these for last because all of the 2-drops have the same effect at the top, which is your opponent mills a card. So not only does your leader mill a card, not only does the 4-drop mill a card, but this card also mills as well. So Ultimate Ice Ray, Ultimate Flame Shot, and Ultimate Dragon Tackle. So Dragon Tackle, you have to have a Unison. Your opponent has to have a Unison in play in order for this card to work. It's kind of the bad part about it. But if they have a Unison in play, you can activate this card. What happens is your opponent, they may choose their Unison and take 2 markers off. If they don't, you get to draw a card and warp a battle card of any energy cost. It's pretty good. A lot of the times what will happen is if they have an important battle card on board or whatever, I'll swing into their Unison and then I'll combo that and I'll use this in the battle phase. So then they either have to warp something on board, I get to draw a card, or they take 2 markers off and I'm basically swinging for triple strike at the Unison, or in this case like quad strike, right? Just a way just to kind of take Unisons away. Depending on the meta, this will go up or down, but I think 2 right now is good. It worked out pretty well for me. Flame Shot's amazing. This card's going to stay in the main deck, and I'm going to put 1 on the side. This is Brainwash No More for Shenron. So the effect is your opponent mills top card of the deck, obviously, and then you crit a life, and then you don't take damage for the turn or the battle, depending on which one happens first. So what's really funny is that if you have blockers on board, right, you block, you activate main on this, restand, and then activate this guy from your hand, you crit a life, they mill 3 cards, one off of this, one off of this, one off of this, and now you don't take damage for the turn. Or the battle, whichever one comes first. Which basically means the first time they attack your leader and you let the attack go through, or if you don't combo over it, you don't take damage. So that's really funny. So it gives you some invulnerability for a second. So you want to activate this during the turn phase. And that's kind of the purpose. So basically you activate this at the beginning of the turn. Like if they're attacking at something, you block with something, you just activate this. And that way, if they want to attack your leader, you're not going to take any damage. Just a very cool Brainwash No More card. I'm glad that we actually got one of these. This is your Flying Nimbus / Dormant type of card. So with this card, if you pitch 2 black battle cards, your opponent can only attack with battle cards one more time for the turn. Again, because you're pitching black battle cards, if you pitch any of these guys here, any of your battle cards, you can draw off of them. So this card will -3 cards from their deck because you mill a 1 off of this. If you use it with this effect, you can mill, but they're going to be milling 2 at the minimum. Then you can pitch 2 cards and then draw 2 cards off of that. And now they only get 1 battle card swing for the turn. Very, very good against low to the ground decks. Worked in most of my matchups today because I play against a lot of weird aggro decks. It was pretty solid. So I don't think I would change this ratio at all. Obviously going to change out these 2 cards because they're not foil, but the ratio I think worked pretty well. May add one of these to the side. I'm going to add one of those to the side. Depending on the format, Dragon Tackle may get added to the side too. Secret rare was Kai. I don't own the Xeno Syn yet, but I think Xeno Syn's better just because it's searchable off of Whirlwind and searchable off of all of your battle cards when you search the top card of your deck. That's pretty nuts, right? Also, you can play it off of your -7 effect if it's in the drop area. So if you accidentally mill the card, you can actually get it back off of that, which is pretty cool. But Kai came up obviously very well. You guys know what Kai does by now. The card's great. I think still the best secret rare overall generically in the game. I think it's slightly still better than Pan. But yeah, that is what it is. So 55 cards. So matchup wise, we played round 1. We played against Yellow Syn. Yellow Syn's a very easy matchup. Yeah, Yellow Syn's very easy because Yellow Syn has to put battle cards in their drop area anyways off of burst effects, so it's just kind of helping me out more. Not much to really say about that matchup. Second game was against King Piccolo. That one was a little closer. He comboed, I think he played the 5 seconds to eradication guy, comboed up to like 90 something, and I milled him out during his attack phase, so he didn't even get a chance to even resolve the damage. Game 3 was against Gogeta, which is the only game that I technically lost. I think his name was Corey. It was a very, very fun game. Me and him had a blast, playing. But we got down the last turn. I survived. This is now the second 8-drop Gogeta that he played. The first one I warped away with Quake. But he swung at me. I took the damage. I ended up hitting an Oceanus, my last Oceanus off of the life. Played Oceanus, and then he had 4 cards left in deck. And he couldn't attack again. He had one more attack on the Gogeta, but he just chose not to attack. And I think like 15 seconds gone by before, and he actually didn't end up passing. And then the judge came in, and I lost because I had less life. So kind of a weird way of winning. I showed him my hand. I said, look, if you would have just passed, I would have just tapped 4 and played 4 extra cards, and I would have won. So like technically, I would be undefeated, but it is what it is. Not too mad about it. Next game was against Toa starter deck with the SS4 Bardock cards, that mumbo jumbo deck. Very interesting deck. I don't like that deck because it's just unnecessary aggro. I hate aggro decks. But the fact that the deck draws a ton of cards and all the cards are 16Ks, so my counterattack can't warp them. Very irritating. I'm not actually sure how I won that game. I was able to clear his board, and then I survived a few attacks, and then on, I think it was like turn 4 or something, I was able to just mill him out. Next game was against SS4 Goku, the black overrealm guy who has double strike on the awakened side. That was kind of a weird matchup. The guy was not slow playing, but there was times where it's taking a little too long for stuff. We're trying to hurry the game up. I was trying not to go into time anymore, and I was able to I think he played the Bardock Unison and -2 and said, all right, so every time you attack, you to warp a card from your hand. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to attack, don't matter. So I went into my turn and just milled him out with like 5 energy. Next game was against, I want to say SS4 Vegeta. And it was very, very, very interesting. He had the Galactic Buster in there. I think he said that he didn't know that it was errated until he started the tournament. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. So just had some dead cards in there, but that matchup was really easy. I played the 4-drop. He wasn't able to remove it, and I think he swung. I believe what happened. He had 8 or 9 cards in deck, and he swung at me. I blocked with the 4-drop. I restood the 4-drop, and I just milled him out 9 cards. It's very, very funny. Last matchup was against another King Piccolo. This guy's deck was a little bit different. He ran very similar to the guy who topped Nats over the past weekend with King Piccolo. Very similar to his deck. He played like the Divine Presence cards and things. Interesting, he ran the Vegito Unison, the 4-drop Vegito Unison. So what happened, last turn of the game, I ended up using Ultimate Ice to make it so that he can only attack 1 time with Divine Presence. I took the damage. I blocked something. I had the 4-drop on board, so I blocked something. I took another damage, and then he slammed down Vegito. He swung in with Vegito, and I took the damage. I went down to 1. He -5, and he's like, all right, I win. But it only says when I don't have any battle cards on board that I deal 1 damage, so he just -5'd and didn't do anything. And then on the next turn, I ended up drawing into the Natron, the 1-drop Natron guy. That guy ended up drawing into this boy, and he ended up winning me the game because I drew into him. I was able to grab Negative Energy Explosion from the drop, activated that, milled him another card, searched the deck, grabbed a Whirlwind, played Whirlwind, and I just played a bunch of cards and ended up milling him out. So the combo that really what you want to do, you want to have this guy, and then any combination of these cards here. So the idea is that once you establish him on turn 4, if they don't have barrier removal, you're going to win the game almost like instantly. Not instantly, but like the game's going to be over at some point. All the decks in the meta right now like to draw. And once you get down to like 12 or less cards is kill range for this deck. You don't want to draw at some point. There's enemies there's opponents I was going against where they wouldn't actually draw with their super combos. The ones at bottom deck, they just combo with it for 10 and they just didn't want to draw. People who stop attacking with their leader. There's one guy who stopped plussing his Unison because he didn't want to draw any more cards. Once you get to a certain point, it actually becomes really, really bad for you. And then any combination of these guys here, it allows you to mill just so much. So I had both these guys on board. So this is an instant mill, right? So we'll go. So this is 1. If you activate this guy at all, whether it's the activate main or battle or the counter attack, it's a mill. These are mill 1s. Technically, these are mill 2s if you count your leader, and then all of these are mill 1s. So you can activate 2 of these for free. You generally want to activate the 2 costs for free. They just need a Unison in play. You actually don't have to choose a battle card. This you can activate on either turn, and this you can activate on either turn. So it doesn't have to even be in the battle stage. You can just activate it just because, right? So you have 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that's off of, we'll say, this guy you can activate for free during your defensive step, right? With the counterattack. So we're going to say this guy is 0 energy. You can activate 2 of these for free because you have a free here and a free here. So you can say 2 of these are free. 1 of these would cost 2 energy, and then the rest of these would cost energy, right? Now, you also don't have to use all of these cards, but there was times where I would mill my opponent down to 1 card and I would just pass, and then they would lose because of game mechanic. They would draw their last card. But being able to use any combination of these guys here, it makes it so difficult for your opponent to deal with because they're not going to want to mill cards. But they can't really stop it from happening, unfortunately, because there's no actual counter step for these cards here. So changes, definitely the secret rare, going to be adding in the triple strike guy. And the crit guy who allows you to search. He's kind of like our deck's version of Oceanus. There's a 3-drop that allows your leader to restand, and a 3-drop that allows a battle card to restand, which is pretty cool. And then there's also a card where you can give a battle card revenge, which is also pretty nifty. being able to give a card revenge is very, very powerful in some cases, because it allows you to take out some pretty interesting boss monsters by using this guy, giving him revenge, and then giving him, obviously he can restand. So it just makes your deck a little more difficult to deal with. So that's what I got for you guys today. I'll update the video when I get the new cards, and we'll probably be playing this at one of my store championships, just because this is a deck I'm going to be playing going forward for a while, just because I enjoy the deck so much, and it is very difficult to deal with. Yellow is probably the best color for this deck to play against this deck. Other than that, every other matchup, just it's kind of brutal for them. So, but thank you guys for watching. Very happy that I got 5th place. Definitely felt really, really good to be able to do that after my plane getting canceled. But thank you guys for watching. Again, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.